Well, here in the studios, Nigeria 2015, here on Channel Television, and of course, looking at the elections. The feeds you just watched, those were some of the celebrations or the way people receive the news, and what might interest you. Loads and loads of those pictures you see there were not political party members. These are the very ordinary Nigerians jubilating, talking about this particular process coming to an end, and a peaceful end at that, looking at the elections as well as the way to go, and a couple of other issues we'll be looking at concerning the elections yet to hold. Is Femi Adesina. He's the President, Guild of Editors, and of course, Editor-in-Chief, The Sun newspapers. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, I spoke with Jimmy Dusu this morning, and the first thing he said to me was, Happy New Year. And I go, oh, okay, April 1st, Happy New Year, dawn of a new day for Nigerians. And a moment ago, we were talking about the anxiety that this election has brought, and how much of interest it has also brought before the international community as well as for Nigerians. For you, looking at the process leading up to this particular election, what stood out for you?
Yes, I must say it was a defining election for Nigeria. And there were a lot of anxieties, there were apprehensions. And what didn't help matter was that, rightly or wrongly, there had been what some people said was a forecast that in 2015, Nigeria was going to disintegrate. Now, if you have such a complex federation like we are, and you have that prophecy, and then a general election coincides with the year that prophecy forecast, and suddenly we were at the threshold of an election that was very competitive, the campaigning was very acrimonious, then you had every reason to be anxious.
The ingredients were complete for total chaos.
Complete. You just had it, all set, all set.
So what made the difference?
I think it's the higher powers that made the difference. It's the higher powers. God just said, no, it was not time for Nigeria to disintegrate. Because Nigeria disintegrating has very great implications for Africa, for the sub-region, particularly for Nigerians, for women, for children, for everybody. Had very great, very dire implications. So I guess, and you know Nigerians are praying people. They're praying people. Everybody went into the prayer closet, day, night, every time people prayed. And I believe that God answered those prayers.
In the middle of this process, at what point was your heart really in your mouth?
I was all through.
Coming from a top journalist, that's amazing.
All true, because I saw the trend of the campaigning. It was the most bilious campaigns we have ever had in this country.
We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Let's go to Abuja. Yeah, well, he's been with us looking at this particular election. Ambassador Ayadigun, well, an election observer. Should I say congratulations to you? That should be in order, I guess.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. I said congratulations, Ambassador Ayadigun. Well, anyway, how did this whole election come for you, especially with regards to the particular results? Well, to seem, well, we're having a bit of difficulty getting my, well, audio down to you wherever you are. Well, he's in Abuja, and he's joined us via Skype. We hope that can be rectified, and we'll quickly get back to you. Marco was asking you, and you said your heart in your mouth all through.
Yes.
One wonders how.
I was going to ask him, you know, at what point, because, you know, yes, we all watched the build-up, and we're just saying, my God, do these politicians know what they're doing? Do they know the potential or the kind of campaigns that they are, you know, going about, how they're going about these campaigns? But on Saturday, for me, it was like things just calmed down. It was like Nigerians came out, they defied the odds, at least where we watched, where we monitored. We saw a lot of people out on the streets, determined to cast their vote. You know, when that process began, from election eve when we began to, you know, monitor the process, as a journalist, at what point did you get scared again?
No, you know when something builds up
Yes.
and it reaches a crescendo,
Yes.
it's either it explodes or it begins to come down.
Yes.
And that was what we saw on Saturday. Election day had come and things began to go down. So on Saturday morning, people trooped out. They were determined to vote. That's one thing you saw. People were really, really determined.
Did that make you happy?
Oh, yes. Yes, it did. It did. Because in Lagos, for instance, you had every reason for people not to vote. One, logistics. INEC didn't get it early. They got to the polling booths. INEC officials were not there. They waited. It began to shine very bright. They waited in the sun. And suddenly the weather changed. It began to rain. They waited. And some as late as 8 p.m., they were still there. As 10 p.m. And don't forget, they had left their houses at 8 a.m. or even before. So a full day was spent on that process. It shows that Nigerians were determined, at least, to vote.
Then we now went through, sorry Nyota, then we now went through the counting process.
Yeah.
And it would seem that we were following a particular script because the suspense in the movie was quite long, almost unbearable, you know. How did you feel about that?
Yes, my own opinion about that was that it was better we did it right. If it was going to delay and the result was okay, then it's better to do it that way. Rather than rush and muddle things up, and then there are accusations and counter-accusations.
Staying with the issue of processes, there are those who believe that if you had held on February the 14th, we may not have gotten the results we got.
Yes, February 14th had its advantages for certain people, and it also had its disadvantages. Well, that 6 weeks shift, apart from what happened on the security front, also allowed INEC to get better prepared. For instance, 10 more million Nigerians collected their PVCs. 10 more million, that's very significant. And then I'm sure INEC also had the opportunity to put certain things in place. But we still had the disappointment of the card readers, particularly in certain parts of the country.
No, but did the 6 weeks help to reduce the level of anxiety?
No, it didn't. Rather, it accentuated it more because Nigerians were raring to go for February 14, and then a week before it was postponed. And you will notice that a lot of things were on hold in our lives. Business was on hold, social events were on hold.
Virtually everything.
Everything.
And anytime
Everything.
you had maybe even business plans with anyone,
Yes.
even parents were telling their children after the elections,
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
have now,
Yes.
I'll see you after the elections.
And you know, those who even owed will say after elections I will pay.
It was as bad as that. But again, how come, I'm trying to look at the business angle, even though our business experts will be coming pretty much later to discuss on that. How does that affect businesses to the extent that, okay, you're the editor-in-chief, a couple of issues would have played out. Away from all of that, you must have seen some, dull moments concerning business operation within your business area leading up to this particular election. How does that tally with the heightened tension, the anxiety for an election in a country like Nigeria?
Yeah. I'll tell you that the impact on business was tremendous, negative. For instance, in January, we had to do an importation. Newsprint, plates, ink, and all that which we import. There is a certain amount we use for that importation. And of course, we try to open an LC with that same amount. Only for a week later, our LC was returned that we needed to add 25 million naira to it before it could go. Imagine, 25 million.
You can imagine what almost every business owner went through.
Every business owner must have gone through that. Every business owner must have gone through that.
And then the dollar.
It was just in a crazy,
What was that? What was that?
It was about, you also know the role dollar played in this electioneering and campaign. So there was pressure on the Naira. The Naira continued to fall. I guess now that the whole process is completed, well, after April 11, you will see the Naira appreciate it. Yes, got to its true value.
But again, I wanted to see, also look at, we'll come back looking at the results and looking at how they have accepted all of that. I wanted to see you're a journalist. You must have also gauged the relevance of this particular election for Nigerians in diaspora. Even though we haven't started voting for people in diaspora, they were so involved, they were enmeshed in this, irrespective of the time differences most of them experience, looking at maybe some should be in bed, they are all awake, you know, focusing on this particular election. Does it mean anything to them, apart from having families back home?
Like they say, east or west, home is the best. For them, Nigeria is still home. However long they have lived abroad, Nigeria remains home. And one day, they aspire to return. Don't forget that most of the Nigerians in diaspora are out there against their will. A good number of them. Against their will. If Nigeria was better, they would rather remain here. I know somebody, he used to live abroad. One time he came home for the Christmas festivities and all that, and January he had to return. He told me that from Lagos to America, he was crying in the plane. He was weeping because he didn't know why he was going back there. He would have preferred to remain here. But if he remained, what was he going to do? So a lot of Nigerians in diaspora actually would want to be here if we had the socio-economic and political environment that would make them stay here. So that was why they had that much interest in what was going on in Nigeria, because a lot of them are trying to keep tabs so that they can see when it is auspicious for them to come.